Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Gentic webinar series. In our previous episode, we unpacked how far intelligent document processing has come, from traditional OCR all the way through to modern AI-driven solutions. We looked at how organizations can now not only read documents, but start to truly understand them, and where that fits into the broader agentic picture. Today, we're going to build on that and bring it into real business context. In this episode, we're focusing on accounts payable, which is traditionally one of the most manual and transaction-heavy areas in finance, dealing with large volumes of invoices, supplier statements, and reconciliations. With technologies like robotic process automation and intelligent document processing, a lot of these tasks can now be fully automated, improving efficiency, accuracy, and control. So, Rio, to kick us off, can you briefly explain what accounts payable automation looks like in practice and why organizations are now investing in it?
Thank you, Sebastian. So as you've said, accounts payable is one of those departments that has a lot of manual repetitive tasks, where the AP team would typically receive numerous invoices from suppliers and have to review and capture those manually into their accounting system. So with automation, it's able to take over those manual tasks and process the invoices independent of the AP team. This then frees up the AP team so that they can focus on high value tasks instead of manual data entry. So take us through how the solution supports AP automation.
Thank you, Rio. So everything starts off with a central mailbox where suppliers send through their documents. Then the automation process is broken down in a pipeline of stages. So, and the reason for that is to allow for scalability. So in the first stage, that's where we've got an automation agent monitoring this central mailbox. And then when incoming documents come through, it will download those and then feed the next process. So the next process is the classification process. And this is where this automation identifies what document type it's dealing with. So an example of a document type could be an invoice, credit note, a statement, or any other document. And then once it's identified what document type it's dealing with, then the next process kicks in, and this is the extraction process. So this is where relevant information is extracted out of a document. Then the next stage now will depend on what document type it's dealing with. If it's an invoice, as an example, this is where information is extracted from an invoice in prep for posting into ERP. Okay. If it was a statement, this is where the statement reconciliation process will kick in with the information from the statement. Then after this process, the next process is the payment process, and this is where automation can assist with payment runs.
So I want to take you back to that classification stage that you were talking about, because you spoke about document types. For example, there's invoices, there's credit notes, and there were statements. So it was important for us to make a distinction between those document types and map the process of how we manage all of those differently. Please explain why was that important for us to do?
Okay, so that mapping process is quite important because we need to ensure that we understand how you currently, while processing your documents manually, what controls you've got in place so we can implement those as part of the automation process. But in addition to that, there's additional business rules that automation process will apply. Okay. And this includes mandatory fields checks, and this is just to ensure that minimum information that's required in subsequent processes is available or is extracted from the documents. Then another set of business rules that get applied is balance checks. And this is to ensure that for numerical values, the numbers do add up. As an example, if you're dealing with an invoice, we need to ensure that the subtotal plus VAT equals the total including amount. Because if that doesn't balance, it means there could be an issue with extraction. And then another set of business rules that's quite important would be making sure that the document is compliant with your local revenue authority. Like if you're in South Africa, making sure that your documents are SARS compliant.
I'm glad that you actually brought up the VAT rules, because in South Africa, a valid VAT invoice is governed by the VAT legislation. So the solution has to be able to cater for those controls. Also, what I like about the solution is that it's customizable enough that it can be applied across different jurisdictions with whatever rules it is that applies to their invoices. I think that's a very important point that needs to be made.
Yeah, so all that is configurable. So it's not hard-coded to suit a specific whatever.
So I understand now you've taken us through the business rules. As an AP person, intuitively, when I see an invoice, I can see the logo. I would automatically know which vendor to post it to. How do you know, after scanning an invoice, which is the vendor that it needs to be posted to?
Okay, so that's a good question, because if you look at a non-PO invoice as an example, when you're capturing that, you need to know the vendor number. But that's generally not on the face of the document. So, and this is where AI agents come into play, because through the other information about the vendor, such as the address, contact details, vendor reg number if it's available, or VAT number. So it's able to use a combination of those details to go into your master data and look up the right vendor ID.
So I want to go back to the business rules again. So as an AP person, if I see an invoice that we've been charged VAT, but the VAT number of the supplier doesn't appear, I can easily just override that and capture that invoice into the accounting system. But now, in terms of the business rules, that VAT number has to be there. How does a solution manage if that VAT number is missing or any field is missing that it needs before it posts an invoice?
Okay, so if any of the business rules fail, so the first step would be, so the AI agent will try and validate the document again. And then if that still fails, then it becomes an exception, and it goes into the exception queue. And this queue is now managed by the AP team. So they're able to go and monitor that exception queue, and then when documents fail business rules, they're able to pick them up from there, look at them, so validate them. Then if it's something they can fix at that stage, they will, and then carry on with the process. Otherwise, they'll have to verify with their suppliers or raise the issue with their suppliers, and then ask them to submit valid documents.
Okay, I've got another invoice-related question. So there's a distinction between PO invoices and non-PO invoices. How they are processed is managed differently. How does a solution cater for that?
Yeah, so as much as they all invoices, a PO invoice is quite simple to capture, because once automation is able to identify the PO number, it's able to go and extract PO details from your ERP system. Then from there, it's able to do a three-way match between the document, the PO, as well as the goods receipt.
Yeah.
And then if all of that balances out, then it's able to post that document without issues. But for non-PO invoices, the process is quite different and a bit tricky, because this AI automation will have to figure out what GL account and what cost center to post the document into. But then it's able to look at the service that's offered or the goods that are offered and then go and figure out what GL and what cost center to post into.
Okay, so I want to challenge you now, because when we talk about purchase orders or invoices, we can have a simple invoice that's one line item. But what about more complex invoices? For example, if you have an invoice from a cellular provider, it's got multiple telephone numbers. Each of those telephone numbers would belong to different people in the organization. Those different people would sit in different cost centers. So you can have one invoice that has to cater for multiple cost centers. On the other hand, you can have an invoice, like an invoice from the municipality, that's got different line items such as water and electricity. Those line items go to different GL accounts. Is a solution able to cater for multiple cost center and multiple GL accounts, or even a combination of the two?
Yeah, so another great question there, and I'll show you some of this stuff in the demo. But yes, so in short, yes, automation is able to analyze the document. So through the services that are listed there, it's able to create categories and then map those to general ledger accounts and cost centers from your chart of accounts.
Okay. Well, you spoke about a demo. I can't wait to see it. Please take us through it.
Okay, sure. Okay, so in a production environment, this process would typically run in the background for efficiency and scalability. However, I'm going to be using this foreground application instead of a background process so you can visually follow what the automation is doing step by step. I think it should make it easier to understand the logic and data flow in real time. So let me show you what document I'm going to be using to demonstrate. So as we can see, I've got this 2-page PDF document that's got a statement on the first page and it's got an invoice on the second page. Okay, so my ingestion method here is, so I'm going to be dragging and dropping that file here. So as you remember, I explained that a typical ingestion method would be a central mailbox where suppliers submit their documents. But for demo purposes, I'm going to drag and drop this document there, and then I'm going to upload it. Okay, so what's happening in the background? So that was quick, but what happened there was the automation went and digitized the document, and then it went through the classification process. And as we can see here, the results, so I've got a statement and an invoice. So on the first tab here is an invoice. You can see now I've only got that page 1 of the document, and then the second page has been classified as a statement. So I'm going to go through invoice processing. So now that we know what document type we're dealing with, it's able to go and extract information from the document. So it's going to be extracting relevant fields related to an invoice, because now it knows it's dealing with an invoice. Okay, as we can see, it's done with extraction. Here's the document on my right, on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, it's showing each field that it was able to extract from an invoice. You can see it was able to extract all these regular fields, and it was able to extract the table at the bottom. Okay, and then if you look, there's a SARS VAT verification process that we spoke about earlier. So at this stage, since it was able to extract the VAT number, it sends this to another process that's currently running in the background, and that process is going to go and validate this VAT number against SARS. And then on the right-hand side here, it shows the balance check results. And what this means is it was able to apply mathematical formula across these numbers here. So just making sure that invoice excluding amount plus VAT equals the including amount, as well as ensuring that all the line items add up to the totals. Okay, now that it's done with extraction, the next step would be to go and figure out what general ledger account and what cost center to post into, as this is a non-PO invoice. Okay, I'm gonna go and kick off that process. So now in the background, it's using the information from the document, so where it's addressed, as well as what goods or what services are there. So as we can see here is the results from the cost center and GL lookup. So based on these descriptions, you can see there's locations here, and that's why it was able to pick up the right cost centers. And then we also have the descriptions here that it was able to use to go and look up the right GL accounts. Okay, so the next step here would be to go and post the document into ERP. So I'm currently not connected to ERP, but what we're doing is we've prepared this payload that's got all the relevant information from the document and whatever it was able to go and look up, such as the vendor ID. And then it's got this information that's ready to go into ERP. So the one other thing that you'll notice here is we've got the results from that SARS verification check that was kicked off in the previous step. So here you can see here's all the details from the document, like the VAT number that was used. This is the name that is on the physical invoice. This is the name of the vendor from the master data. And then this is the name from SARS. And this tells us that this vendor is an active VAT vendor. And this is the date and time that the verification was performed. So this is what I've got in terms of invoice for the demo. And then for the statement, the process is generally the same. It will go through digitization, extraction, and then the next step for the statement would be to go and extract the general ledger, and then it will start with the statement reconciliation process. Okay, so for the second demo, I'm just going to take you through this AP cockpit that's helpful for AP team. So this dashboard that we're looking at now lists all the incoming documents as well as their statuses, and they able to apply filters here and track where their documents are based on filters such as vendor or who the email sender was, dates, and fields like those. And then there's details about each one of these documents, and they're able to see what the status of each is. Another useful dashboard here would be process insights, and this dashboard basically helps them track performance. So as we can see here, you're able to see what your submission rate looks like and what your auto extraction rate looks like. You're able to also track how many of these documents require human validation and how many of those were successfully posted. And then here as well, there's filters that you're able to apply.
So as you've explained, typically an AP person would go and take the statement from the supplier, compare it to what was posted in the GL. Where there's differences between the two, it would detail that as reconciling items in the recon. Now, if you've got a high volume of statements to process, that task takes a lot of time. So when automation takes over that manual task, it frees up the AP person to be able to go and resolve those issues.
Yeah.
So I think in a way it can improve supply relations because the turnaround time of resolving issues is much faster. So the next step in the automation journey then would be the last step, which is the payment side of it. How does the automation solution assist with that?
Okay, so once invoices have been posted and approved, automation is able to assist with the payment run.
Okay.
So it will automate the payment run process and then go download and distribute payment remittances to suppliers so they know what invoices were paid. And that's generally the last process in the AP automation process.
So there's really nothing for us to do. AI is taking our jobs.
Well, no, AI is not taking your jobs. It's
making our lives
It's making your life easier and giving you a chance to focus on more value-adding
That's true.
subjects. Okay, so now that we've gone through this AP automation process, from invoice registration to payment runs, what would you say organizations can benefit from implementing end-to-end AP solution such as this?
Well, firstly, the bot runs 24/7. So there will always be invoices that are processed, which means that the number of invoices that are processed, as well as the efficiency within which they're processed and the accuracy. So one of the business benefits, there's many benefits, right? Firstly, the bot runs 24/7. So it is always online to process invoices. Also, the speed with which it processes invoices is always faster than a human, but also it's very efficient and there's less errors because humans are prone to making errors. Another thing is that as the business grows, typically they would invest in more human capital or they would invest in more software. But the automation solution is able to absorb that growth and still continue to process without that parallel investment. In that way, the automation solution is very scalable. But one of the unexpected benefits is that the automation solution opened up new doors of analysis. And by that I mean a human being, when they view an invoice, would capture a summary of the line items. Perhaps they might not even capture all of the line items because of time. But the automation solution is able to read at a line item level and get the full description of what was captured. That gives richness now to the description of the data. Yep. So I'm going to take you back to that municipality's invoice. If you've got water, you've got electricity, you can pick up the consumption or the unit readings. Now imagine if you track that on a month-to-month basis, you're able to see what the trends are. You can also then start forecasting. So other than just being a tool for data capturing, it is also a tool that can help look at previous trends and assist with forecasting as well.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So automation doesn't only just make processes faster, It will also improve the quality and the structure of your underlying financial data.
It really does.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the long-term benefits that anybody can realize from such a process.
Thanks, Rio and Sol, for such insightful information around accounts payable. I think what's very clear from this discussion is that automation is fundamentally reshaping how finance teams operate. What was traditionally a very manual and effort-driven process can now be handled through a combination of intelligent document processing and robotic automation, with far greater consistency and control. And the benefits go well beyond just speed. We're seeing improvements in data quality, compliance, visibility, and overall scalability of the finance function. And for organizations looking to start this journey, the key takeaway is to first understand the structure of your existing processes, especially the repetitive, rule-based activities. Once that foundation is in place, technologies like UiPath can significantly enhance how accounts payable operates within the business. So with that being said, we'd like to start the Q&A shortly. I've got a couple questions I'd like to ask Rio and Solly, just based on the insights they've shared with us around the topic already. So feel free to pop some questions in the chat, and I'm sure Rio and Solly will be happy to answer them.